Hey guys, it's Sean here from Micro Budget Film Lab, and I want to talk to you today about writing for the market, which is something that you've probably heard many times over. If you've read screenwriting books, if you've attended seminars, if you've done screenwriting classes, and so on, people always say this, write what sells, write for the market, and so on. And I got thinking about this because last week's vlog post about why you should turn genre upside down, don't just try to write genres the way that Hollywood does because they can do, or don't make a movie like Hollywood does because they, of course, can do an action thriller with 10,000 times your budget and they're going to make it look better. So don't just try to do the same thing that Hollywood does. Do something different. Take advantage of the options that exist. Because you're doing a micro budget, you don't have the same need to recoup and so on. And that's why you should do it. And underneath that, there were a number of comments, and one of the comments came from someone named Dov Simmons. And Dov Simmons has written some really wonderful stuff about having a kind of can-do attitude to making movies and why you should make movies. Is probably the reason why I ended up, at least in part, making micro-budget feature films. And so I really like his stuff and I respect his work a lot. But he wrote underneath the vlog post a short comment. It was just, it's called show business. The implication being film is a business and you should write looking towards the business. And so it got me thinking about this idea, again, about writing for the market. And I want to be totally radical here and suggest the exact opposite, that you shouldn't write for the market. Don't spend your time, waste your time writing for the market. And there's a few reasons for that. Now, you write for the market because you're hoping that somebody will see your script and pick it up and buy it and maybe attach you as director if that's the kind of thing that you want to do. And there's some numbers that you need to know. The first is that something like 100,000 spec scripts are registered every single year with the Writers Guild of America. And there's probably double or triple that in terms of scripts that aren't registered. I don't register all my scripts with the Writers Guild, for instance, and I know other writers who don't register all their scripts with the Writers Guild for a variety of reasons. So there's a lot of scripts out there. And there was a report came out that I read back in October, November, I guess, which was about the number of spec scripts that Hollywood was going to pick up in 2016. The studios, the big production companies, the indie, mini majors and so on. And the number for 2016 was going to be less than 100, maybe below 90 scripts. So you're talking out of, say, 100,000 or 200,000, you're talking about, a statistically insignificant number of scripts were going to be picked up. So the chance that it's going to be yours is extremely slim for a number of reasons. One, the producers tend to want to, and studios tend to want to work with the same screenwriters, so they'll get the gigs over and over again, which is understandable. I mean, you tend to work with, if you're making movies, you'll tend to work with the same people over and over again because you can trust them, you know the quality of their work and so on. And of course, the big companies, it's the same thing. And the second reason is because Hollywood tends to make the same kinds of movies over and over again. And so you get all these people writing to the market, writing the same kind of movie. There's, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 romantic comedies out there that have the same basic storyline, follow the same structure and so on as being produced. Well, Hollywood's not going to spend money and effort, or the studios and the big production companies are not that likely to spend the money and effort to sift through tens of thousands of scripts when they can get it from people that they know can write well and who come and pitch them because they have those relationships and you don't have those relationships. And it's remarkable how similar these sort of market-oriented scripts are. I can remember a few years ago in my development job receiving 2 scripts within a 2-week period that were literally almost the exact same storyline. An action thriller. One was written by a guy in LA, one was written by somebody in Europe, and they'd never met each other, and yet very similar because the structure is the same, as I say, and they had a few key story elements that were similar in terms of the locations it took place on and so on. And what they ended up with, the ending was exactly the same. The same stunt climactic action sequence from one to the other. It was really quite astounding how close they were, even though these guys had clearly never actually met one another. So you're creating the same product for a market that's already saturated and in which the production companies will tend to go with the people with whom they already have relationships. Now, I'm not saying don't write romantic comedies. You want to write romantic comedies. If you love romantic comedies, you've got Mail as your favorite movie, you loved, Bridesmaids, write what you're passionate about, and that's what I want to get into. If you're passionate about horror, write horror. If you're passionate about art films, write art films, because you don't want to get to the age of, 75, 80, a point in your life where you feel like you no longer have the power to kind of embark on a new path, which can be quite late, but still you don't want to reach that point and realize that you've written 30 scripts, none of them have been made, you haven't directed any of them because you've been waiting for Hollywood to come to you. Instead, you can feel like you're writing for the reason you probably got into wanting to make movies in the first place and wanting to write screenplays in the first place, because you're passionate about telling relevant stories. And so you should think about, set aside thinking about the market and what the market wants, and instead write what really moves you, what you're really passionate about in your life, because then at least if Hollywood doesn't make your movies, you can make your movies, make a micro-budget film that's going to be, a passion project that's going to feel, different than just the same old story structures, and which is also more likely to get you noticed. As I said last week, films like Upstream Color, which are, Upstream Color is an incredibly intellectual, kind of bizarre movie, and it's done really well for Shane Carruth. Chris Nolan did Memento, which, in the book by Blake Snyder, Save the Cat, he disses Memento repeatedly. It's like his foil that he battles against. And, who remembers Blake Snyder's movies? His book is amazing. I love Save the Cat. But who remembers the movies that he's made? I bet you know who Chris Nolan is. He's made a number of sort of, besides the Batman movies, he's made movies that are intellectually challenging and interesting and try to grapple with big questions and so on. So really, don't spend your time trying to write what you think the market wants. Think about what you're passionate about and write your passion, and you'll feel better about your writing. If you just want to make money, do something that's easier. Become an accountant, go into law, become a plumber. You can make better money that way, and, and your weekends you can spend free with your family instead of, freaking out all the time trying to get your screenplay done. If you want to be a filmmaker, write for what moves you, write for what your passion is, and at the end of the day, you're going to have scripts that you can make that you feel good about, and you feel good about your decision to become a filmmaker and not pursue more lucrative, frankly, professions in the end. And that's my suggestion. Don't write for the market.